Welcome. Welcome to Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Dr. Ondine Young, she or any, and I'm thrilled about our special guest, DCA. You will hear about more about them later. Please rise and body your spirit for hymn number 1046, Shall We Gather the River by Lowry. This hymn was written by Robert Lowry, is an American professor of literature, a Baptist minister and composer of gospel hymns in the 1800s. Shall we gather at the river?
On behalf of Diablo Choral Artists, I just want to say thank you again for welcoming us to your church this fine Sunday morning. My name is Luis. I am the artistic director and conductor, and we're so happy to be here. Our next song is in Spanish, and I just want to give you a quick, this microphone is not cooperating, give you a quick contextual Good thing I'm a professional, right? Thank you, kind sir. La Martiniana. This is a traditional Mexican folk song that sings from beyond the grave. It's sort of a ghostly romantic song reminding the ones we leave behind that if you wish to stay connected, keep singing. keep the music going, and that's how we stay in touch with our loved ones.
Well, good morning and welcome to the Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church. I'm the Reverend Leslie Takahashi and my pronouns are she and her. And we are glad to welcome those visiting us today, including the Diablo choral artists under the leadership of Luis Gonzalez, who is the artistic director and conductor. We are so grateful to have them with us today. And this is a morning of great riches because we are also very, very happy to be welcoming back to our pulpit our Minister Emeritus, the Reverend Dr. David Sammons. It is a special treat to have him with us, and we're glad that all of you are here as well. If you're visiting with us, welcome. If you're returning after being away for a while, welcome back. If you're online and considering coming back, please do consider joining us in the sanctuary at some point. We'd love to say hello, and we're so grateful to have those online as well, and all of those who are visiting. Online, you can stay for our virtual coffee hour, which will take place 15 minutes after the service, so that you can say hello. And if you're visiting and haven't done so, we invite you to fill out an online visitor's card as well. Here, you can see our rainbow table in the Borton Hall and fill out that visitor's card, and we look forward to being in touch. Next Sunday will be the Sunday when those who are ready to make the commitments of membership are invited to sign the book, and we look forward to welcoming those who are ready to do so. Today, we have a couple important things happening. We have a second service The next in our series of spiritual feasts, it will be at 4 p.m. here in the sanctuary, Something Wrong in the Village, which is being coordinated by our Assistant Minister and Minister for Justice and Engagement, the Reverend Rodney Lemery, and a team of folks from our Joyfully Ourselves group. We also at 2 will have the last of the sessions here again in the sanctuary. The last of the section, I'm sorry, the spiritual feast is actually in the Borton Hall. I was wrong about that. In the sanctuary at 2, we have the last of our conversations about and question and answer sessions as part of the search process for looking at calling Reverend Rodney Lemery at an upcoming annual meeting. So we hope that you will participate in those, and welcome to this beloved community.
Good morning. I'm Sharon Solstice. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church is a welcoming community. We begin our services by reading our mission statement together. We bring to life our Unitarian Universalist values as we seek truth and work for justice, nurture compassion and courage, reach out to each other and to our larger community of faith, bridge the divisions that wound the human family, transform ourselves and our world. Spring is a great time to get involved. Check out the weekly email and Beacon newsletter for the many, many things that are happening here. Sign-ups for a new round of community circles is happening, and that's a great way to meet people. We're so glad to have you with us. Our expectation is that those who are attending in person have no symptoms, if any, of the communicable diseases that are going around. Thank you for honoring this commitment to keep one another safe. 2 announcements. As Reverend Leslie said, May 3rd, anyone wanting to become a member can sign the book and officially become a member, and that is the last opportunity to do that before the meeting, the church annual meeting in June, when we will hopefully approve our budget and also be taking the vote on whether or not you want to call Reverend Rodney. So please consider that if you decide whether or not you want to sign the book within the next month. If you haven't had a chance to pledge today, our pledge box is on campus, and you can always pledge online. Thanks for allowing us to move through our budgeting process. If you are new and have questions about pledging, Jim Lincoln is here, I believe.
No, I don't think so.
Take it back. Who? It would be me. Okay. And Bob Olson is here. I am here. I'm our treasurer. Zohair Chiba is here. So there are plenty of people that you can ask if you have questions about pledging. And what I want to say about that is, after our first week, when we opened the pledge drive, we got halfway to our goal. We haven't moved very much since then. And as treasurer, I'm very concerned about getting the budget in order, and we can't make a budget if we don't know what our income is. Pledging is our primary source of income. So for those of you who pledged, thank you. For those of you who haven't pledged, please do so. Even if the amount you can pledge is small or not at all, let us know that, and you won't be harassed with follow-up emails and phone calls. Thank you. It's good to be together.
And this is the time when we welcome and greet one another, and today we are talking about the values that are part of our legacy. So I would suggest we just say, I value you, pass it on. Let's greet each other.
All right, I'd like to invite you back to your seats. And I'd like to invite those who are young and young at heart. I want you to come forward today down our center aisle. So those who are young and young at heart, come forward down our center aisle, and we're going to come gather over here. So come on down. Those who are young and young at heart, come on down here. Look at all this wonderful energy. I love it. So come gather all the way over here. Okay, I'd like to invite those of you who just came up front. If you would like to do this, we're going to do an activity that involves our body. So if you are comfortable, we would like to invite you to rise and come stand down here. We want to use this whole space over here. So come down here and stand.
Thank you so much, Marina. And hi, I'm Travis. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm glad to be here with you today. We're going to do a mindful moment where we have two choices. If we are a standing choice, then we'll be rooting through our feet into the ground. And if we're sitting, I guess it's still rooting through our feet, but also the rest of our body. We're going to do a mindful moment where we take on the form of a tree and see if there's any wisdom that comes from that, from embodying the form of a tree. So those standing, doing the standing option, you could rise now and just start by letting your feet just kind of come rooting into the ground by just being stable, just feeling as if you and the ground are connecting deeply. And if you'd like to raise your arms, you can stretch and feel like you're bridging the ground and the sky. And maybe there's energy flowing in both directions. And think of all the others who are touching the ground right now, too. They're touching the same ground as you. So there's energy flowing between you all. And the air that you're breathing and that's all around you, they're in the same air, breathing that same air. So they're connected with you that way, too. And let's just take one deep breath together in this still form, like a tree. And remember, if later in the day we're moving around really fast and it's hard to collect and center, you can always just stop and be still. And remember what it feels like to be still. Maybe there's some wisdom for you there. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Bob Foxall.
And I'm Carol Foxall. When Leslie asked if we would like to chalice this Sunday, I asked what the theme of our service would be. She answered, legacy. The dictionary's definition of legacy is what is left behind. In thinking of a reading with which to light the candle, I thought of a legacy I recently discovered. I know little about my paternal grandfather as he died before I was born. I knew that he had a manufacturing business in the early 1900s. I was surprised to find that he enclosed a card of support or encouragement in each pay envelope for his employees. One card stood out to me. It expresses the importance of each of us to the success of an endeavor. I hope you will find it as thoughtful as I did.
To me, the value in our reading today is that it is human. I'm a humanist. And it's relatable. See what you think. If you would make good, you must understand that the work which counts is the work in hand. It's the things you have done that show what you can do, not the bigger and better things you plan. The work you do now must be done right if you would reach your goal or your utmost height. So keep your aim, but watch your step, doing your part each day with pep. For it's not what you do, but how you do it that counts in making good.
Good morning. My name is Marina, and I have a story for you today about legacy. This is called A Lesson in Legacy. Once upon a time, in a vibrant forest filled with all sorts of creatures, there lived a wise old oak tree named Elderwood. Elderwood had been standing tall and strong for many, many years, and the other animals in the forest often came to seek advice from the wise old tree. One day, a curious young squirrel named Nutmeg approached Elderwood. "Elderwood," Nutmeg said, "what does it mean to have a legacy?" Elderwood smiled kindly and replied, "Leaving a legacy is like planting a seed in a garden that you never get to see." Nutmeg looked puzzled. "But how can you plant a seed in a garden that you never get to see?" Elderwood chuckled softly. "Let me tell you a story to help you understand, young Nutmeg. Long ago, when I was just a small sapling, an old owl named Hoot taught me the importance of planting seeds of wisdom and kindness. Hoot told me that by sharing our knowledge and goodness with others, we plant seeds that will grow into something beautiful long after we are gone." Nutmeg listened intently as Elderwood continued. "Every time we help someone, teach them something new, or show kindness, we are planting seeds of our legacy. Even though we may not see the garden flourish ourselves, we trust that our actions will create a better world for future generations." Nutmeg nodded with understanding. "So, by being kind and helpful, we're leaving a legacy for others to enjoy?" "Exactly," Elderwood replied. "Just like how I learned from Hoot and now share my wisdom with you, you can pass on what you learn to others, and they will do the same. It's a cycle of planting seeds of goodness that continues for generations to come." From that day on, Nutmeg made a promise to follow Elderwood's wise words. He helped his friends, shared his knowledge, and always acted with kindness. And as Nutmeg grew older, he saw the seeds of his legacy bloom into a garden of love, wisdom, and happiness that filled the forest for years to come. And so the forest creatures learned that leaving a legacy isn't about what you gain in the moment, but about the lasting impact of your actions on the world around you. And with that, I would like to invite everybody to join me in singing the children and youth to their activities.
As we leave this friendly place, love will dawn through every face. May the kindness that we bear guide our
Hi, I'm Evan Yunker, and my pronouns are he and him. And legacy has always been a somewhat complicated topic in my life. See, I remember when I was about 14 or 15 years old, I was speaking with one of my teachers and lamenting the fact that at some point I would die and nobody would remember me. And for me, legacy was about being remembered, about how people should miss me, how if I left something behind financially or something, people would remember me and be thankful forever. And that was like a thing for me. That evolved over time, but I began thinking of legacy at a very young age. Now, the passing of my father 10 years ago is probably responsible for my most recent reckoning with the concept of legacy and the concept of gross inadequacy. But to understand that, you have to know a little bit about my father. He worked for the Navy from before I was born until a week before his death. His last role was head of C4ISR, Command, Control, Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance for the Office of Naval Research, R&D type stuff. So at his memorial service after his passing, one Nobel Prize recipient credited him with being indispensable to at least 4 Nobel Prizes. The most notable developments that were mentioned in the unclassified section of his career involved being part of the efforts to develop the most accurate clock in the world, which is now housed at the Naval Observatory, developing the GPS satellite system, and developing that technology for different colored light emitting diodes. So lots of R&D fancy stuff. But after his passing, the House of Representatives passed a resolution honoring his life and service. The Secretary of the Navy and military leadership from around the world sent condolences. And today, the Executive or Conference Center over at the Office of Naval Research is the Bobby R. Younger Executive Conference Center. Flags were flown at the Capitol, blah, blah, and so on. You get the idea. And if you're thinking, wow, that must give you a complex, you are absolutely right. But it also made me realize it's okay not to be remembered. You see, 10 years later, people go in and out of that conference center without remembering who he was. And even I use GPS every day and drive around with seeing those little red, yellow, and green light emitting diodes in traffic lights without thinking of them. But the impact he had is felt by people all over the world. That was his legacy. So now I believe legacy has multiple forms. It's not just the things and the money that we leave behind to individuals. It's also the impact we have through our work, through our family and close friends, and in how we live our values in our daily lives. Our legacy is the impact we have on people that in turn impact others in any of those forms. And knowing that makes me sleep a little bit better at night. Come, let us worship together.
Please rise and body your spirit for hymn 145, As Tranquil Stream That Meet and Merge, words by Marian Franklin Ham, and music by Musikalisches Handbuch. And the 1933 hymn by Marian Franklin Ham celebrates the growing closeness between Unitarians and Universalists, which led toward the 1961 consolidation of the Unitarian Universalist Association as Tranquil Streams.
got it. I'm good on doing this. It's probably because I don't want to do this, right? Yeah. It is the custom in this church when we lose a member to death that we light a candle from our chalice. And today I light this candle to honor the life and vivid memory of Sonia Christopher, who has been one of our most long-serving members in this congregation. Sonia was known nationally for her role as the first person who was voted off the island on the show Survivor. And if you want to read more about her, which is something that I think Sonia made into a ministry to the world. Instead of having resentment or upset about it, she gave graciously and became a very dedicated, ardent Survivor fan, which she remained to the end of her life. If you want to go online and read the online tributes, you can see the leadership role she played in bringing her values to that particular realm. Sonia was a music educator. She was a mother. She was beloved as a friend among so many. And she entertained us here because she was the consummate entertainer in so many ways, including her last performance, which was actually just a few years ago when she did a rendition of one of her favorite acts among us, the details of which I will leave to be discussed at a different time. She was a person who loved life, but who also loved this place and its values and the community here. So let us take a moment to remember Sonia Christopher. A celebration of Sonia's life will be held here at this church in the coming weeks, the details of which will be announced as well. But let us today remember the gifts of music and of connection, of friendship, and of claiming your own truths in her honor.
Now is the time in our service when we come together to bear witness to those joys and sorrows that are too great for any of us to hold alone. If you have written in our book of joys and sorrows today, please come forward to light a candle as I read your entry. Rosie Reed and Mary Allen are lighting a candle in honor of the passing of one of our education greats, Delane Easton. As our first woman state superintendent of public instruction, Delane was a passionate leader and advocate for meeting the diverse needs of all children in California. She was also funny, kind, compassionate, and felt deeply about the loved ones surrounding her. Her intellect and voice will be greatly missed. And now I'm asking Reverend Leslie to light 2 final candles. The first represents all of the joys and sorrows not voiced aloud today, but still present on our hearts. And the second, a reminder of this one imperfect world and precious world, and our role in making it more loving and more just. Thank you.
Please stay seated for the meditation song, which is number 9, Se que abrirá esta rosa, I know this rose will open, by Grigola Barrios. The words and tune of this hymn were written by Mary E. Grigola, a Unitarian Universalist minister. The choir will be singing once through and then split into SATB canon. You can choose your own adventure.
I invite you to join me in the spirit of reflection and meditation this morning. This congregation has been privileged to have a wonderful legacy of ideas and 2 minister emeriti who have left their ideas to us. And so as we gather today after what has been a very difficult part of the cycle of news in our world this week, I want to remind us of these truths that we inherit. And I want to remind you of the words of our first minister emerita, the first minister of this congregation, the Reverend Aaron Gilmartin. He said in his final sermon in 1975, that one of the most important things for him was about thinking about truth and how ways of thinking about truth have been passed down to him. And he quoted these words from William Ellery Channing, which I offer to solace for us today. Channing said, "I must revere human nature. In a world in which sometimes we see the hardest part of human nature, in which we struggle to understand one another across lines of difference, I offer the solace of the words of Reverend Gilmartin, who said, I feel that is something I had already and always known. It was dormant in me until Channing's words brought it to my consciousness. To me, this idea, Channing called it his sublime idea, that all humans became the central focus of my life, and the belief that gave principle motivation to all I tried to do. This idea that individual human beings, in whatever state or circumstance, are beyond all the distinctions of sex and color and race and nationality in their humanity. That is the sublime idea. So in this time, let us take this part of our legacy of values into our hearts, and may it give us comfort there.
Before we sing another arrangement of At the River, I just want to personally invite everyone to attend our concert in 2 weeks, which is Mother's Day, right here in this very room, 4 p.m. If you have questions, I'll be hanging around after the service, and happy to answer that. When I think about today's theme of legacy, those of us who dedicate our lives to music are singing all this music, we have a special responsibility not only to take up the mantle of the composers and the wonderful works they created, but to reevaluate them every generation and to make sure that we're doing our part as those who remain to further that legacy as well.
Shall we gather by the river, where bright angels' feet have trod, with His grace the sky full gather, crying, Lord of God. Yes, we are gathered by the rivers, the beautiful rivers. Gathering the saints by the river, and those by the throne of God. Soon will reach our journey's end. Soon our pilgrim's feet will feel. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we are gathered by the rivers, the beautiful rivers. Gathering the saints by the river, and those by the throne of God. And those by the throne of God.
Thank you for that beautiful music. Good morning. My name is Nasa Matt. I am a member of your Board of Trustees, and my pronouns are she and her. Recently, my school that I work for had a reception to celebrate our 50th anniversary of being in Concord. And the whole evening, I found myself bouncing between feelings of excitement and pride and happy tears as students that I taught as long as 10 years ago arrived with big hugs and stories of their adventures since leaving my classroom. As I watch these young people who are finding their independence and their roles in our greater community, I was reminded of my lofty goal in teaching. Yes, I've taught these students how to read and add and multiply and read a compass rose, but my big aspiration has always been to help my students grow into those who will make our world a better place. At this time, I'd like to invite you to take a moment to think about how your role within our work here at MDUUC is a part of your legacy to our community and our greater world. We are in the midst of our pledge drive, and while we had a strong start, we've hit our sophomore slump. So I would like to remind you to submit your pledge now so that we, the board, can build our budget for the next church year. Even small contributions make a difference. If you would like to give to MDUUC and you are joining us online, you can go to our website, mduuc.org, and click the yellow Give Now button. The ushers will now come forward to gratefully receive our offerings. Please join me in dedicating our offering with the words on our screen. To the work of this community in transforming ourselves and our world, we dedicate ourselves and our offerings.
Got it.
I call my helper here Thunder. I want to put a symbolic stone in here for Mary Gregolia, who wrote that beautiful piece about the rose opening. Mary was an intern in this church back in the days when where we're sitting right now was a raggy field of weeds. Hard to imagine, but that's the way it was when I came here. We didn't have this lovely sanctuary and social hall, and we didn't have the beautiful grounds that surround our buildings. We had a congregation that was like a cozy fellowship. Was even a little skeptical of ministers. When the vote was held to have a search committee to call a minister after the then minister had left, 30% voted against it. They didn't want someone up here telling them what to do. But I knew the reputation of this church's first minister, Aaron Gilmartin. Gil had been this church's first called minister, called about the same time that this property was purchased and leveled out so that buildings could be placed here. That was in place of a house in Lafayette, which would have been a disaster had they chosen to go that way. Gil was a very interesting man. He had been a labor organizer before going into the ministry. He really cared about the ministry outside the walls of the church. He'd been an activist his whole life, and he was a perfect fit for a liberal-minded congregation, even if it was skeptical of the authority of ministry. I first knew of Gil when he ran on a Black Power platform to be president of the UUA. That was a logical thing for Gil to do because back here in Walnut Creek in the Bay Area, he had shown his support for black empowerment by convincing the congregation that it should hire 2 black ministers for its staff. One of them was affiliated with a program in Oakland in which several of our church members took part, and he eventually went on to become a United Methodist bishop. And then there was the Peace Center, building up where these houses are up above us over here, with its anti-nuclear, anti-war, pro-civil rights actions out in the larger community. It was a center of liberal activism in this town. It had begun as a committee of the church, shepherded by beloved Andy Balzo. The Peace Center gained notoriety during my ministry when a person it supported led a demonstration at the Concord Naval Weapons Station. Trains used to come out from bunkers that were in the hills there to a pier and were loaded on ships that carried munitions to our wars in Central America. They had carried nuclear weapons as well. And this man, Brian Wilson, sat on the tracks and he dared the train to come by, and it did. And it took his 2 legs with him. I'd known Brian as an activist in Cincinnati, where I had been a minister. He was then involved in prison work, and I sat with him in the hospital the next morning when he woke up and found that his legs were gone. Brian never regretted his action. He regarded those missing legs as a symbol of what we should all be able to give in behalf of making ours a better world. Gil retired, and another minister came, and he wasn't quite the same kind of activist. He didn't live up to the expectations of the members of this congregation. That sometimes happens with ministry. The core of leaders of this church wanted a minister who would be more present with the congregation and would be more active in the larger community. And I was that kind of minister in the church I was then serving back in Illinois. So I came. I came because of the reputation of Gil, and because when I had been a student at Star King a long time before, I saw this little congregation out hill at the foot of the Mount Diablo, and I always wondered what it would be like to live out here, and had a wife who wanted to live badly in California. So we came. And the leaders of the church developed a long-range planning committee that wanted to move ahead and make this the kind of church in which people in this community would want to come. It would have all the kinds of things that people would expect of a church, not just be a cozy little fellowship. It took a long time for that to happen, for this church to become what it is today. But because of the leadership and the energy and the vision of those lay people in this congregation, we've become what we've become. And it's important to remember that it's not just ministers who create that, it's the people who are parts of churches, the people who support opposing the civil wars in Central America back then, who built a panel for the AIDS quilt, who took on the issues that followed the incident with Rodney King in LA and supported housing development and programs for homeless in this community. So I want to thank all the people who made this happen, for those who had a vision of what this congregation could become and the force it could be in the community. And I want to give thanks to the core of beliefs that are at the center of our movement that attracted those people and most of you here in the first place. The core of beliefs that symbolized by these banners that hang over our heads, the 7 principles of these banners that were created by my wife and Rachel Mazer. They've always been the core of beliefs symbolized by these banners, centering on human responsibility, human compassion, human intelligence, and the search for truth and meaning that have been important to the evolution of this community and our religious faith. I know about that faith and its history. I used to teach UU history here and at Star King. It's a history of how a vital religious movement can thrive, even as the language it uses and images it has can change over time. Change from becoming a non-Trinitarian Christianity to a non-hell-centered and damning Christianity being thrown out, to a natural theism, to humanism, and to the spirit of a community that respects all the people-loving religious traditions that exist around our world. I was ordained to serve this tradition, and I will until my days on this earth are done, as I hope all of you who come to this church will do as well. You've heard that voiced, that demand, that call from many people in the service today. We may not all agree on the language we use or the social analysis that underlies it, but we must all believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people and the other values that are symbolized by these banners that are over our heads. The world will always need in it people who believe in those values and live them out, who live lives that positively add to this creation of which we're a part. We all need churches like this to honor that kind of tradition and to reinforce it in us. A church where our core of values is extolled and encourages us to both gather and then to take those values out into the world in which we live. I'm proud to have my face over here in that portrait on the wall, looking out on us all. What it does is it makes me a part of all of you, you who are the real core of this church.
Honor our Minister Emeritus. I'm so grateful to have him with us. I have been grateful for the opportunity since before I even accepted the call here to have the wisdom of the Reverend Dr. Dave Salmons be part of what informs my ministry here. And I've been grateful as well for the ministry of Aaron Gilmartin, who said that the shame of the religious enterprise is that it can dig itself too much into the sidelines of life, in the familiar and the domestic, the private and the sentimental, to the giving of identity and the soothing of anxiety, but certainly not always to leadership in shaking up the structures of order, the kind of leadership that requires courage. That is one of the values, as Dave just said so ably, that has been transmitted in this congregation and that we continue to transmit across this time that we're in. As Dave said, we might give it some different words, but we continue that legacy of values. And what I wanted to say was that 2 years ago, we took a collection as part of our big ask to raise some monies to refurbish and refresh the Gilmartin building. And we did so because families needed a different kind of space than the one we had. And as that happened, it was a great time to do something that we had been thinking about doing for a while, and that the board and I, in conferring, decided to do, and that was to move 2 portraits of our ministers emeriti who were at that time in the Owl Room where our youth often meet, but which aren't the most public of our spaces. And so the portrait of Aaron Gilmartin now is right inside the front door of the Gilmartin building. And I love that because when I walk in, often having conversations with my nemesis, the copy machine, I can look up and see this broader vision about what this congregation is about, and to remember, sometimes in the details, which there are details in community life that can be annoying, that we have this grander vision. And the portrait of Reverend Dr. Dave Salmons was moved in here to reflect his vision in creating a campus that allowed us to grow into what we needed to be over these last decades. And so we've honored him by placing his portrait here in the sanctuary, and that is something that I am glad to honor. So as Aaron Gilmartin said, we need to be the community that believes so strongly in the preciousness of human life that we will interfere when human beings are being smothered, whether by air pollution, government bureaucracy, a school committee, or an authoritarian state. And in honor of that partnership here that is so rich between those of us who serve as ministers and those who serve as our members, I want to honor Arliss Ungar, whose scholarly work has preserved so many of the words of Aaron Gilmartin. May they and all the values that sometimes are explicit and sometimes are just part of that river that we inherit of legacy be with us in these days when they are so greatly needed.
Please rise in body and spirit for hymn 128, For All That Is Our Life, by Finlow and Rickey. When he was a member of the hymnal commission responsible for singing the living tradition, Reverend Mark Bellatini shared these words from British Unitarian Bruce Finlow with a California rock musician named Patrick Rickey. Within 24 hours, this hymn was born, For All That Is Our Life.
And we extinguish our chalice with these words by the Reverend Aaron Gilmartin, delivered here in 1996. May we rebuild the world for more splendid lives than our own, add wisdom to the order of the young, and loving kindness to the musings of the old. May our eyes become aware of things that we are too gentle to proclaim themselves. May we have emotions far beyond the fret of nerves. May we be free of the fear of our own and from the triple curse of greed, intolerance, and vainglory. May we lift the dark clouds of war from our future and cause the nations to journey together in cooperation and understanding, and thereby secure blessings of peace for all humankind. May we take the values of this community out into our days and into our world.